Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to the Geodjango tutorial series. So this is basically a start of the series 2 for the Geodjango tutorials, and I had shared the schedule beforehand. I know it's been a while, and it has really taken some time. So today I want us just to start with the first bit, which is basically setting up a Geodjango project, and I will go direct into it. I know for those who've been able, if you've not watched the Geodjango tutorial series 1, basically we covered quite a lot. So this series is basically to update some of the content that is there, and also to ensure that we bring on board new topics and new concepts into our solutions. And basically we'll be developing a real solution, which basically the code will be shared, it will be there on GitHub. Everything will be shared with you for your access, and you'll be able to ask questions and also test it out on your side. So basically, if you look at some of the concepts that were there, this was the first series, and we developed a solution called Agricom. And as you can see, of course, there are quite a number of things. It's up there in the tutorial. We had given outlines on how to create the databases, how to set up everything, and basically how to run the application on your own local machine. So basically with this, in this tutorial, I'll assume that you've installed the various dependencies. You have your PostgreSQL installed, you have your Postgres installed, you have other dependencies such as GDAL, Geos, all those geospatial libraries. I hope you've been able to install them, because I will not be covering that in this tutorial. We'll basically be setting up a Geodjango project. So the first thing I usually do is basically come here to this site where I look at the various versions of Django over the years. And as I can see here, we're basically in 2022, and for me, I like going with what we call the long-term versions or long-term releases, because they basically have much better support and for some time compared to the short releases. So looking at this table or this roadmap, you can see that we currently at Django 3.2, which basically the support extends all the way to 2024, compared to these others which are basically short term. So in this tutorial, I'll be building using 3.2, because at the moment, even this as we can use this basically to develop our solutions, and this is what we'll be using for this tutorial. So without further much ado, what I usually advise guys is of course we'll be setting up the environment. I don't like developing on the base or the bare metal for the various operating system that you're using. So it's always good to have at least set up a virtual environment where you'll install all your dependencies, because I know if you're like me who has many projects running on the same computer, you don't want to screw up the dependencies for the various projects. So I just come here. So basically I have everything installed on my machine, and I want to set up a virtual environment. Inside that virtual environment, that's where we'll set up the project, and I'll be able to run and see the pages that we require. So basically so I'm on Python 3, so I'm using Python 3, and basically or technically using 3.8.10, and this is basically what we'll be using. So to set up a virtual environment, I'll just need to run a virtual environment. So I have a folder that I basically call XX. This is where some of my dependencies, more so for such trainings, go into. So here I will go to XX, and then I want us to develop a project, and the project will basically have three types of spatial models. So I'll have one for point fields, or one that carries point data, another one that carries line data, and another one that carries polygon data. Okay, so with that, I'll be able to basically we can tag along everything, but I want us to basically develop a solution for mapping coffee shops, or basically coffee restaurants. These are basically options like Java and all that. So I know they are different from depending on where you come from. So I basically call it a coffee mapper. So for lack of a better word, let me call it that way. Or I can just call it coffee. So this will be the name of my dependency. Sorry, not my dependency, but this will be the name of my virtual environment. So I can create it. Yeah, and basically if I try to activate that environment, I'll see it's there. So it's called coffee, and yes, so now I've activated my my virtual environment. So the next thing is basically to start or install various dependencies that we need. And for this specific one, the first thing is just installing Django as on its own. So I can install Django, and because I want a specific version, I want 3.2. I can extend to okay, let me just 3.2. Okay, so it tells me that it has successfully installed ASGRF 3.5 Django bytes, these 4 time zones with Python, and then SQL pass. And then I can navigate to a folder where I want my project to be. So here I'll just say Django admin start project. So I can call it coffee shop mapper, or locator, or let's call it coffee shop mapper. So I can even have for better terms of namespace. Okay, yeah, so now I have my project that I've started called coffee shop mapper, and if I try to get inside that folder, I'll see that I have quite a number of files. Let me just open this on VS Code. Okay, yes, so the application looks like this, and you can see not the application per se, but the project, the Django project. You can see that there's another folder inside the coffee shop mapper, and it has quite a number of files. So of course there are the settings, the URL files, and of course the manage.py. So there's basically nothing really here, but these files will help you set up everything that you need, and you'll be able to actually proceed with the other bits in terms of configurations, setting up the databases, and all that. So let me just repeat the process here. It was called coffee being activate. Let me just activate it from this side so I can use the terminal on VS Code. So here, if you look at these files, you'll see that this is the default setting that comes with the Django project. So there's nothing much by the defaults. You can see, for example, the database, it's SQLite. Of course, templates, you've not defined the directories. There's nothing that mentions GIS on the installed apps and everything. So this is our work now to do this kind of setting up. And I want us to basically do this ourselves. So to start with, we can go into creating the spatial database where this application will be linked to. So to create a database, I'll basically go to Postgres Postgres, yeah, that, and then I can check that. So one thing we have to notice that for Python, basically for Django 3.2, depending on each version as it comes out, you need to be checking the dependency versions. For example, this one does not support PostgreSQL 9.6. It also doesn't support Postgres 2.2. So we have to know that, for example, I can see here, I can see that I'm running the server 12.10. So basically, there's also, so the PSQL version is 13.6. So these are some important things to note because, of course, depending on the versions, there are some times where you'll find difficulties in running a project. So always ensure that you're up to date with some of these things, like the database versions and the Postgres versions, so that you can set up your project correctly. So now here I want to create a database, so I'll just use the simple method. So I can just call the database coffee shops. Okay, there it tells me the database has been created. I can connect to the database so that I can add the extension for Postgres. So here I can create extension and I call it Postgres. Remember, Postgres is just one of the modules or one of the extensions that you can add within Postgres. There are so many. There are some such as topology. So depending on what you want to do, we have so many. You can always check with PostgreSQL docs to see the kind of extensions that you can install in a project. So basically, for this project, you'll find that everything has been set and everything has been in terms of creating the database, adding a Postgres extension within the database. We've done that. So now this database can be connected to our project here, and we can actually use it to store our spatial data, and we can run various queries and all that. So I'll just exit here. So from here, you could actually, the first thing you need to do is basically come to the database component, which is within the settings.py within the coffee shop mapper folder. And you could use actually this database, but of course it doesn't support spatial, like for example, we'll be working with models which are quite elaborate. So I usually prefer us to use PostGIS. So here we'll adjust a few things under the default or under the definitions here. So for example, this one, we can we go to GIS to DB and then backends, and then of course PostGIS. So depending on your experience with these components, some things might seem a bit simpler and some of course will be a bit difficult if you're a first timer, but no worries, that's why we are here to learn. So the engine, we've basically directed it to Postgres. So the name here, this is basically the name of the database. So the name of the database that we just created, we called it coffee shops. So of course, watch out the spelling and the names. So after the name, so when you're defining, for example, the Postgres database, there are quite a number of things that you need to define. So we've given a name, which is basically the name of the database. We can give a user, who is basically the user who we expect the project to connect to. So on this machine, I've not changed anything, so I'll just be using Postgres. There's the password of this user. So I usually okay, so I've forgotten a comma. And then after the password, you can fill in the host. Then from there, basically the host is this guy, which is this machine, localhost. And you can actually have a remote host, so it's not, but that's why these options are available. And then the port is basically the default Django, PostgreSQL port, so I've not changed that also. All right, So now we've added quite a number of things, and as you can see, we have the engine to be Postgres, the name of the database, the user and the password, and then the host and the port of the database. So at this juncture, if you wanted to actually sync or connect now the project to this database, it should actually work, and we shouldn't find any difficulties in trying to bring on board such kind of project. That's how you would do it. There are other settings that you can do. For example, here I always like changing to my time zone. Caps. Okay, so Nairobi. Can't type. Okay, so we have Nairobi. So there are quite a number of things you can set. Remember, for the sake of the tutorials, I'm just doing a basic setting, or basically the standard way of doing things. So depending on your project, you can always advance your settings and all that. Okay, so now we're done with the settings. We've done so this issue that actually I've done that on purpose. So we have one dependency that we need to install. This is because the reason why this has appeared is because I've added things like this here. So to do or to eliminate this error that is asking us for psychopg2, which basically is a Python wrapper to the Postgres database, we can basically say pip install psychopg2. So so depending on the various psychopg2 versions, you can either install or build the psychopg2 from the source, or you can just do pip install psychopg2 and it will fetch the latest version and it will be installed. So for example, I can see that it has installed this version here, and if I was to pip freeze, of course I'll see not only the two components that we've installed, which is basically Django and the psychopg2. Of course, we shall see every version of the dependencies that have been installed. So that's how you eliminate the error of psychopg2, and this will appear basically when you add this component here or this entry, and this is because it expects to connect to the Postgres database. So the Python wrapper psychopg2 has to be installed. Okay. So of course, I know there are some migrations depending on some of the components that one has. Let me just install this. Sorry, migrations. Migrate. And then let me do this. Let me create super user. So I like using the word so you can have life in gis.com. Okay, and then okay, so now if I was to run server, okay, so this one here, and if I was to go to let me go to my admin. Okay, so now I have my database and my admin, so I can access my admin, I can access, so everything now has been set, and so no worries. So the next step will basically be creating sample models, the models that we're talking about. So of course there's a process of creating applications within Django. So there are things that are basically Django, and there are those that are Geodjango. So I'll be spending much time on Geodjango components, because for the conventional Django parts or components, those ones you can check out on the documentation, or also maybe on other tutorials, which basically will sort you out. Okay, so the other thing is we can basically create an application. So let me just create an application, and because we are looking much of mapping the location and all that, we can say we want to create app called, let me call an app called resources. Sorry. Sorry, this is not creator but startup. Okay, so now with startup, so I've seen now I have an application called resources, and of course inside it comes with a default migration folder, an init initialization file for Python, admin.py, apps.py, models, test, and views. Okay, yes. So of course, now from here we shall pick it on, like creating. This is where this application is which will carry the models on these models.py, and we shall create those models in the next tutorial, and we'll be able to see how basically they wire up and how we can sync the data. So that is it, guys. I hope you've been able, or you can actually install this on your own. I need, in case you have a question, don't forget to mention it on the comment section below. And also remember to subscribe to the channel, so that, because this is a series, so there will be a video every week where we'll be able to learn and also engage on the various things about Geodjango. So cheers, guys, and have fun.